there, my name is Zoey, well, Zoey Purplevalley, though my friends tend to call me Zoo. I am 21 years old and I am on my own for the first time. I'm coming to Jorvik specifically for their love of horses, and while I'm not entirely sure if I want to move here yet, I've always loved horses, and I thought, what better thing to do than apply for their riding camp, take a few lessons, live here for a little bit, and see if I want to permanently move to the island.
So I should clarify here that as much as I love horses, I've never quite had the opportunity to take lessons or be around them at all. So I thought while I'm staying on Jorvik for a few weeks, this would be the perfect chance to vlog my journey while I see how things go and how I enjoy it. So I was picked up from Pinta by a really kind riding instructor by the name of Gretchen from Moorland Stables, and of course we wasted no time heading back to Moorland so I would have a chance to get to my cabin, settle in, meet my roommate, all before my lesson today.
Before long, we were at the Moorland riding camp, or well, I guess it's actually called the Jorvik riding camp. I thought it was the Moorland riding camp. That. So I wasn't entirely sure what to expect heading into Moorland, but what I wasn't expecting was it to be a tiny little island dedicated specifically to the riding camp behind the main Moorland stables. This is probably what I get for not properly reading the website before applying and literally leaving for Jorvik within a few weeks. The riding camp has its own smaller stable directly behind the main stable on this little island, and to say I was speechless was a bit of an understatement. There was already so many horses that seemed to be on 24-hour turnout. And of course, they had all the little cabins here specifically for the riding camp participants, and Gretchen, of course, took the time to show me to my cabin. Quickly explained to me that my roommate had arrived just the day before and that we would be staying together for the next few weeks, of course. And then she also explained to me when we should head down to the stables for the lessons before leaving me on my way so I could meet my roommate and she could tend to the horses. To say I was nervous about meeting my roommate for the first time was of course a bit of an understatement, but after I finally got to meet her, I quickly had those nerves settled. She introduced herself as Sylvie, and she actually has no experience with horses either. She's actually afraid of horses, but I could already tell that we were going to get along just fine. Sylvie and I got the chance to spend a few hours getting to know each other before we finally had to get ready to leave for our first riding lesson at the camp.
To say I was literally buzzing with excitement was a bit of an understatement, but I think my excitement was pretty much evened out by Sylvie's extreme nervousness at having to ride a horse for the first time. So we ended up meeting Gretchen and her horse Pixel at the stable, where she quickly pointed us out to the correct pasture where we would be grabbing our horses that we would be using for the duration of the riding camp. The horse I was going to be riding for the duration of the riding camp was a chestnut Jorvik warmblood gelding by the name of Thunder, who is around 20 years old, while Sylvie is riding a somewhat younger gray Jorvik warmblood by the name of Bee Bramble. I was a little surprised that Gretchen set us out to catch the horses on our own, but I was excited to get the chance to finally meet Thunder and of course say hello. I was warned that despite his age, Thunder can sometimes be a little bit difficult to catch, but I didn't actually have any problems walking right up to him in the pasture and giving him a nice pat before putting the lead rope on him and of course leading him out of this pasture. It didn't seem that Sylvie had any trouble catching Bee Bramble either, as Bee Bramble was standing right at the fence when we walked over, and of course clipping that lead rope on and getting him out was a piece of cake, though to say that Sylvie looked horribly nervous was a bit of an understatement. With a bit of direction from Gretchen, we finally got the horses groomed and tacked up for our lesson. I was struggling a little bit with the girth there. It didn't seem like Thunder was too keen on letting me tighten it, but we did eventually get it on, and of course we mounted before heading off for our lesson.
We, of course, did get some direction from Gretchen before we mounted and headed down to the paddock that we would be using for the lesson. Gretchen just wanted to give us a chance to get on and, of course, just walk over and get the feel for the horses before we fully started with the lesson. Gretchen was not too happy with us when we finally did meet her for the lesson, as neither of us had actually put on our helmets before mounting the horses, so she took a moment to scold us for not doing so and made sure that we put them on before she began explaining what we would be doing for the lesson. The whole point of today's lesson was just to walk and trot around the pasture and get a feel for the horses and, of course, practice the absolute basics of riding.
I will say I was pretty surprised that Gretchen was on horseback and following us around for the duration of the lesson from her horse, but it seemed that she just preferred doing lessons on horseback and of course made sure to direct us while we were moving around the pasture. I was so surprised just how much energy that Thunder had despite his age. He was just so sensitive to all my cues and he was always quick to respond to anything I asked him to do.
While B. Bramble just was more woe than go, he was always lagging behind and just completely content to just copy whatever Thunder was doing.
I guess that was by design with how nervous Sylvie was. It was good to have a horse that was eager to just copy what was happening in front of him while Sylvie gets a little bit more comfortable on the saddle. There was one instance where I messed up and Thunder thought that I wanted him to canter, so he immediately sped up and B. Bramble, trying to copy exactly what Thunder was doing, immediately took off after him. Despite being a little bit slower, he did give Sylvie quite the scare. But with a bit of direction from Gretchen, I got Thunder to slow down, and of course B. Bramble was quick to follow, so Gretchen thought now was a good time to cool off the horses and finish up the lesson.
So after our horses was cooled off, Gretchen brought us to the middle of the paddock and just began giving us a few tips on things that we could do better and of course how to handle our cues that we give to the horses. She also of course took a bit of time to scold us again for not wearing our helmets immediately and reminded us just how important it was to make sure we were wearing a helmet, especially with how new we were. Gretchen also took a few moments to give Sylvie a bit of tips on getting more confident in the saddle, as she really didn't want Sylvie to create the bad habit of letting B. Bramble just follow after Thunder during every lesson. So, of course, after that, she decided that it was time to send us on our way to get the horses untacked and groomed to be turned out for the night. While the lesson definitely could have gone better, it wasn't the worst lesson in the world, and I left this lesson just so excited to start my next one tomorrow, and I just found myself adoring Thunder so much. Even Sylvie seemed just a little bit more comfortable in the saddle by the end of that lesson. Sylvie and I, of course, took the chance to chat while we got the horses untacked and groomed for the night, and all while this was happening, Thunder reached his head over and was trying to bite at B. Bramble's halter. It was a little bit funny. B. Bramble didn't seem all that impressed, but of course that was about the most excitement that came out of untacking and grooming the horses.
And with the horses sorted for the night, Sylvie and I took both B. Bramble and Thunder into the paddock so they could be turned out.
We finally, of course, turned out the horses. I couldn't quite help but stop and just stare out into the pasture by the fence and watch our horses after we turn them out. There's just a little bit of wonder in seeing the horses run around and enjoy themselves in the pasture after a long day, and I'm just so excited to finally be here. As we were nearing dinner time, one of the other campgoers, a woman by the name of Amanda, came over to our cabin and invited us to join her at the campfire while we ate. And of course, we were more than willing to do so, so we followed her out to the campfire. It had been such a long day with such a long boat ride, the drive to Moorland, and of course getting to meet my roommate for the first time, getting to meet the horse I'd be riding for the next few weeks for the first time, and of course our first lesson. I just needed a chance to sit down, relax, and take in everything that had happened today, and I am just so excited to see what the next few weeks have in store for me. I want to thank you guys so much for watching and joining me on my first day at Jorvik. I'm hoping to do a few more vlogs in the future, just documenting my time here on the island, and while I get settled in and just, decide if I want to actually move to Jorvik going into the future here. But of course, that's all we have for today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Goodbye.